gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Unfiltered. I'm your host, Chebs. We much appreciate the perspective we have the opportunity to learn from one another. Our stories are powerful. We took a pandemic like this for us to think.
I have focused on using my art as a tool.
Because the opportunities are vast.
We have a crucial moment for which to engage in that study right now. I'm your host here, Chebs. Welcome to Unfiltered. Let's get started. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Unfiltered. I'm your host, Chebs. We much appreciate the perspective we have the opportunity to learn from one another. Our stories are powerful and well. We took a pandemic like this for us to think.
I have focused on using my art as a tool.
Because the opportunities are vast.
We have a crucial moment for which to engage in that study right now. I'm your host here, Chebs. Welcome to Unfiltered. Let's get started. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Unfiltered. I'm your host, Chebs. We much appreciate the perspective we have the opportunity to learn from one another. Our stories are powerful and well. A pandemic like this for us to think.
I have focused on using my art as a tool.
Because the opportunities are vast.
We have a crucial moment for which to engage in that study right now. I'm your host here, Chebs. Welcome to Unfiltered. Let's get started. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Unfiltered. I'm your host, Chebs. We much appreciate the perspective we have the opportunity to learn from one another. Our stories are powerful and well. We took a pandemic like this for us to think.
I have focused on using my art as a tool.
Because the opportunities are vast.
We have a crucial moment for which to engage in that study right now. I'm your host here, Chebs. Welcome to Unfiltered. Let's get started. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Unfiltered. Thank you for taking the time on this Sunday evening to join us here live in studio. We have a lot in store for our discussion today, but first of all, I want to take the opportunity to invite all of our guests, all of our viewers to share, like, and encourage others to share and encourage others to join this conversation. You can start a watch party if you will. We have our guest right here with us in studio, so we will roll right into it without much ado. Our guest today is no other than, I know many of you may know him, many of you may not know him. He needs no introduction, but I'll give him one and he will be very brief. Our guest is my very good friend and colleague. We work in various areas in doing different things. He's Emile Enongene. He was born in Bamenda. For his childhood, spent his childhood in Mbengwi. Grew up in Kumba, went to school in Buea and Victoria. Currently lives in Calgary, Alberta, and working in continuing care as a nurse leader and as an administrator, and one of the original bushfallers, Russia in 2005, and then Germany on foot. We share quite a bit in common here on those bushfalling journeys, but thank you so much, Emile, for coming. I know that is a very brief and short intro. Like I said, Emile and myself, we work across various sectors. We do a lot of work in humanitarian work, advocacy work, and we're great friends. We drink beer together. He might say he drinks Russian rum since he lived there some while, but that's how we share quite a bit in common. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a beautiful Sunday in Alberta. We haven't had any snow for a while now, so thank God. So
Yes, yes. I must say that I actually was talking to somebody about the Alberta snow yesterday, and just telling them that over Christmas it was about -50 at some point. And but they were asking, does Alberta have the same winter like us? And I said, well, the good thing is you guys have an early spring, and your summer starts early, whereas here in Nova Scotia, it's a late summer for us, but also a late winter. So those are the gives and takes of Canada's weather systems.
Well, so we have the fortune that we grew up in southern Cameroons, where the weather is always beautiful. And growing up in Kumba, you go out of your home and there's family, there's people. Our individual cultures were not built by just your family. You go out of your home, you do something wrong, the next door neighbor, the mommy this, mommy that, grabs you and lays a whooping on you. So that's where we grew up. And then you come here where you have these lengthy winters. You don't have neighbors, nobody knows you. You don't have any connections in the community. It takes a toll. It takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on your mental health. It takes a toll on your physical health. Sometimes you feel like not doing anything. So it is different. Life here versus life back home versus life within your family is completely different, and we need to develop strategies on how to cope, how to make things work, and how to build community even away from home. So I think those are a few things we'll talk about today.
Yes, yes. I'm so glad that you segmented the conversation and teed it well for me into that into our topic for today. But you are absolutely correct. Mental health is something that we don't talk about quite a bit. But as you have said it on the outset, it is something that, frankly, all of us who, especially those of us who have traveled to these lands from other places, we really need to pay attention to.
You know the name, the name, Bishnut.
Just give me a second.
Yes, sorry.
Yes, there's some noise coming in from here. I'm just gonna. Okay, there we are. That's taken care of. Sometimes we have folks coming in, but don't really adhere to our rules of if you are in the Zoom meeting, you have to be quiet and not speak out because it interrupts with the stream when we're talking to a guest. So as we were saying, one of the things that we really need to pay attention to as people who have traveled from afar to these lands is the issue of our mental health, because there are different considerations that we have to give or consider in terms of how we develop strategies to take care of ourselves. It's not that mental health doesn't affect people in these parts, it does, but for us it's a little bit heightened, given that we are away from family, as you said, we are away from the systems and environments that we have grown up in and are very used to. And so there is an added burden on us to be extra careful in terms of how we take care of ourselves. They say it's mind, body, and spirit. You have to take care of all three.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, when we talk of mental health, we think about growing up where we grew up, of Chris Man for road, right?
Yes.
And that comes with a stigma. That comes with a little thing attached. And when we growing up, people will come to Europe, they'll go to America, and then all of a sudden they'll be back home because they had some mental health issues. The story was that man don't go bush, go Chris. You don't come back, right?
Yes.
And there is that stigma attached to mental health issues that we try to hide it under the rug. We try to sweep it under the rug, and we don't talk about it. We don't acknowledge it. So that is just one aspect of mental health, right? Where people have full-blown mental health diseases. But there are other things that are related to self-care that we need to have a conversation about, so that we know what we are getting into when we get into certain professions. For example, you practice law. I am a nurse. I work in a high-stress environment, and people like teachers, right, who have to deal with different circumstances. They can't put a whoop to the backside of a child here, and parents expect teachers to do miracles, right, for children here. So you come here, you get into certain professions that are high-stress professions, and sometimes you are alone. You don't know how to deal with those things. It's, finding people to talk with, finding the right books to read, finding the right resources in your community. Everything ties in with everything. And therefore, we need to start having conversations in our communities about those things.
And I know we're going to talk a lot about different aspects of this, but one thing that jumps out at me at the top there is also, especially as men and boys, because talking about where we come from, the culture and everything, mental health is not something that we really talk about, and it's something that often has a negative connotation attached to it, especially so for men. We're raised to be strong, to be tough, to be brave, but we also have vulnerabilities, and we need to find ways to deal with vulnerabilities, and those vulnerabilities don't make us weak necessarily.
No.
They make us strong. It's tapping into every aspect of our being, the emotional, the psychological strength part of it, and also the motivational. So all these different things we tap into, except the area of mental health. And I'm glad you talked about self-care. So I'm really looking forward to engaging in this. Also, you mentioned work environment, high stress work environment. But I'd also like to say there is also a number of people that live in the diaspora that don't work in this sort of traditional, professional, high-stress jobs, but that work in other spheres that are also very high-stress environments.
Absolutely.
Given that it's not professional in the sense of a nurse or a doctor, where you have a certain or a certain code that governs the way you work. Think about somebody who's working in a warehouse. I did that when I first came to this country, and it was high stress, because you have to pick. I remember when I worked for a warehouse in the northeast of Calgary by Whitehorn, and this warehouse supplied all the Walmarts across Western Canada. And one of the measures for this job was within an hour, you had to pick 350 boxes or packages from the conveyor belt, right? So that was the measure. If you didn't meet it, you got fired. I saw people getting fired, like, starting the job 3 days, they get fired because they're just not gonna meet that. So there's a lot that we're gonna unpack in these conversations. Please, if you're watching, share, invite others to join, leave a comment. We appreciate that. If you have some contributions to those of our guests who are in the house here with us, just indicate by raising your hand, and then we'll get to you and get your comments, just so that we can flow smoothly. Emile, let's get to it. So tell me about this. We've been dealing with a pandemic now for the last 2 years, going to 3. People thought that this was going to be a done deal once the vaccines were out and done. You are an administrator, and I want to really emphasize this. Yes, you're a lead nurse, but you're also an administrator that oversees the administration of several homes that support people, that need assisted living. So tell me about, one, the stress from your own perspective as a nurse, but also as an administrator, managing other nurses working in all of these different homes, and also dealing with the fact that we have a global pandemic that is underway. How are you coping with all of these things?
I love to talk in anecdotes. So I would like to paint a picture of what the COVID pandemic has looked at us for me, right? So 2020, we are living our lives, right? I'm sure that summer you were here in Calgary and we're hanging out, like doing whatever, and that was life, right? And then October starts rolling around and we're hearing all this news from China. People are dying in the streets, and we have these dramatic images that we're seeing on TV, like, oh, and you keep thinking that's not going to happen to you. That's not happening here. And then we get to December and they start shutting things down, right? Cruise ships cannot come in. And then we get to March. And in March, unfortunately, I lost my dad. So I went to Toronto to spend some time with my younger brothers. And then I come back to Calgary on the 23rd of March. By the time I come back, they've stopped all visitation at the home where I worked. So no families can come in. Nobody can, no visitation at all. So we are taking care of these people. They are cut away from their loved ones. And then on the 9th of April, I get my first case. By the time we get to the 15th of April, I have 20 cases. And by that time, five of my residents have passed away. 5 residents have passed away, and their loved ones only get a chance to come see them when we are 100% certain that they'll be dying within a very short period of time. Now, you watch the news and you are scared to hell, right? So you have staff who really don't want to work with people who are positive with COVID. You have family members who are fighting to come in to see their loved ones. You have residents who are mentally stressed because they don't know what is happening and they want to go out, they want to live their lives. And you are saying, I'm locking you in for your own good. And that is a misnomer, totally. Like, they should be able to take the risk the same way that I take the risk and I go to the grocery store. They should be able to take the risk to go out and live their lives. But if you go out and you bring the disease, you infect other people, and you infect my staff. I have to tell you that the day that they found the first resident positive, I lost 27 of my staff. One day. 27 HCAs, LPNs, RNs, gone. And I need to find a way to care for them. In addition, we open a new ward, right? Where the people who are positive have to go in, and I have to staff that ward 24 hours a day. There is no Monday, there's no Tuesday, there's no Wednesday, there's no Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. All the days look alike. So it is who is now positive, which of my staff is staying home, and has anybody gotten to the 14-day mark? Like, 14 days became this heavenly number. Like, did this person make it to 14 days? And they're like, okay, this person has overcome the crisis. And in addition to that, you don't get to see anybody outside of work, right? Because you cannot hang out with anybody. You don't know who will give you the disease. Even if you're wearing a mask, you're not sure. We had no idea whether the masks work or not. So that was the life from March 2020 all the way to summer that year. And then summer comes and we have a little bit of a breather. And then October comes again and it starts all over again. So between March of 2020 and January of 2021 or March of 2021, we had almost 120 people infected. We lost 7 during the first wave, and we lost 23 residents during the second wave. I had more than 70 of my staff who tested positive, and one of them ended up in intensive care. That was COVID for us. That is how real COVID was for us. And then the 1st of January 2021. This, I think it was the 29th. I get a phone call, and they say, "Look, we have the vaccines available. We have done a risk assessment, and your home is at the top of the list. Are you willing to come in and vaccinate your residents on the 1st of January?" It was like, let me talk with my people. I knew, like, I didn't really need to talk with my people. My people were ready to come in. And we have pictures of that day when that vaccine came in, and we were able to vaccinate our residents, because by that time we had been vaccinated already. Like, we had had the first dose, and people were looking at us like we were nuts. Like,
Yes.
you took that thing. I was like, yes, I took that thing, because you have not seen COVID. I have seen COVID. Like, so I got my first jab right there on the 23rd of December, 2020. And then just went from there. But I have to tell you, like, without my team, because we saw each other at work, and we looked for opportunities to hang out after work. But it was the same people. It was the same conversation. Nothing ever changed. And we lived that for 2 years. 2 full years, there was nothing else. Your friends, they'll call you, "Hey, we're doing this," and you'll be like, "Do you know that COVID is out there?" And I became Mr. COVID, Mr. being afraid of COVID. And I'm not afraid of being different, but, but we lived it. So as an administrator, you had to juggle everything. I remember one day we were on the phone until midnight, 1 a.m. looking for staff. So we had to set up emergency training rooms within our facility, so that people will come in for training without having any contact with any of our staff or anybody else or any of our residents. And then agency staff will come in, and we just needed them for bodies, because since all our residents were locked in their rooms, some of them needed assistance with feeding. We needed people to go help to feed them. If not, they died of dehydration.
Wow.
So that was the fun 2 years that we had.
Right.
In face of COVID. But again, it helped pull my team together. It helped, us become a family, a tight-knit family that cared for each other. If there is anything that you can call positive from this experience, it was that we stood up for each other, we fought for each other, and we became one more than ever as a team at work.
So your team at work sort of developed a support system, because I would imagine all we were hearing about was how nurses were mentally exhausted. I mean, we still hear that today because it's still ongoing. Nurses, people who work in healthcare are mentally exhausted. There is massive departure from the profession just because of burnout as it relates to this last 2 years of dealing with COVID. So what other strategies outside of work, you personally, how are you managing your own mental health in the face of trying to help your team stay strong, trying to look out for your residents, and also trying to forecast, what would become of the resident home, given that people were getting sick, you were moving people, bringing other people. How did you manage all this?
So I've already mentioned how much of a support system my team was, but little things you pick along the way, right? You never know when they'll come in handy for you. For example, little things like going to bed early, right? You go to bed early, you wake up early. I wake up at 4:30 every day, but I was never waking up at 4:30 before COVID, right? But now that has become my routine, because I want to wake up. I want to spend at least an hour by myself, because when you work in a giving profession, you work in a giving space, you cannot go in empty. So you need to fill your own cup before you can go give other people anything.
Right.
So my first thing is that simple morning routine where I wake up at 4:30. I, do some exercise for about half an hour. I come down here, I sit down, I meditate for another 10, 15 minutes. And then I do a little bit of journaling, especially gratitude journal. And then I spend some time alone and I look at my day and I pick that one thing, not two things, because you cannot pick two things. You pick that one thing that will say, okay, if I do this thing today, my day is good, right? And then you talk with somebody. You need to have that one person, that somebody that you talk with, that you pick up the phone while you're driving in your car and say, hey, we're going in again today. Are you good? When that person tells you they're good, you feel good about yourself too. So it is just having that feeling for me specifically that by the time 80%, 90% of the world wakes up, right? I've already done this much for myself. So that when I go in to deal with other people's problems, I am full, I am filled, I am ready, right? So that waking up at 4:30 is not just about waking up early. It's about being by yourself, filling your own cup before you can go help other people. Because if you don't fill your own cup, you cannot give. You don't have anything to give. So for me, your morning routine is everything, because as your day starts, so your day goes. And being present in the moment, you cannot imagine how precious that is. You walk into work and there are 1,000 things happening. If you're thinking about something that happened over there, then you cannot give your 100% to the person who's in front of you.
That's right.
So there is one thing that my staff know about me is that when you stop Emile in the hallway or when you come to Emile's office, Emile will listen. Emile will give you his 100% attention. And I can only do that because I've taken care of myself before coming in the morning, so that everybody who walks into my office, everybody I meet in the hallway, I can give them my 100%.
Wow, powerful. I like that last segment that you closed with, because it takes us into our next question, which is feeling content, getting that satisfaction is also a motivator to be able to give, which sometimes there can be the desire to give, but you don't have to give.
You don't have to give.
Yes. So the reason we talk about mental health is that when you take care of yourself, when your mental health is in good shape, then you have the ability to help others. Not that they might need something fully, but you support them through their own crisis, and also given the context of the work that you did. This is one thing that I wanted to ask. Let's talk a little bit about what we mean by mental health, because, when we say mental health, it could be interpreted in so many different ways. So what are some of the things? Because, we use the broad term. In this society, I think most people understand when you talk about mental health, some of the things that you're touching on, the anxieties, the depressions, but it's bigger than that. It's not just about those things that serve to constrain us. There are other things, stress, at work, stress in the family, stress at home, stress from being away from family, stress from being alone. Some people live alone, have lived alone, don't have other friends and partners. So there are all these things that feed into mental health. So let's talk a little bit about that from our own context.
So you've used this word like 1 million times already, stress, right? So I will not give a single definition for mental health. So I'll ask anybody listening out there, right? Anybody listening, what is mental health for you? What is mental health or mental difficulty for you, right? So I'll ask anybody, anytime somebody says, hey, how are you, right? And you think of that word stress, you think of stress, because that is our common response, right? That is our common response, stress. So in any situation where somebody will say, hey, how you do? And you say, master, stress, that is mental health difficulty for you. That is what I would define a mental health issue for you, right? So good mental health is not only, being able to walk and talk straight and not picking up stuff in the dumpster back home, or not being, in a mental health institution out here. But good mental health is having those mechanisms of coping with difficulty. And that is a very important issue that we need to talk about, dealing with difficult situations. But being in good mental health means you have good coping mechanisms around you. You have a good support system around you. It means you know how to take things in perspective. It means you know how to understand the place of failure in your life. It means you know how to relate, how to have those difficult conversations at work. It means you know when enough is enough and it's time to get the hell out of here. So every situation that you can respond to and say, this is stressing me out, there you have a mental health issue that you need to look at closely, accept it, and find a way of dealing with, and find a way of incorporating it in your life if it's something that you cannot get rid of. So does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, and I like the way you unpacked it and made it so simple. You simplified it really well. Every time there is a stressor in your life about anything you're about to engage in, you should know that there's a mental health component. So you need to reflect, see what can be done to either cope or to address the reason for that. I think that explains, and that's very, very succinct, because it covers any scenario that you can think of, right? Even, like I say, coming on to do the show, there are certain stressors. There's nothing in life that doesn't have stressors attached to it. But I guess the issue is, how do you identify those stressors and what do you interpret them to mean for your own well-being? So for me, I love doing the show. Part of the reason I do the show is because of my mental health too. It helps me express myself, engage in conversation with people, hear other people's points of views on other things. I learn from that. And yes, it may be stressful a little bit to sort of put together all the pieces that allow the show to happen, but that stress is less compared to the benefit that I derive personally as the host of the show from having these conversations, that at the end of it, I live fulfilled. And maybe it took some energy out of me when I was trying to, find the person who was going to be the guest, write to them, call, do all these little things. But at the end, when you have a fulfilling conversation, you feel as if you've put something out there that supersedes all of that. And so when we talk about mental health, we're not just saying, any stress that you have is a negative stress. No, some stresses are positive, but it's how you strike that balance, interpret all of what you're feeling, and then put in place the strategies of either you're addressing this or you're coping with it, or it's fulfilling, and so you're less worried about it.
Absolutely. And one thing that we out here have come to, it's an unfortunate thing, but it is a real thing. We keeping up with the Joneses has become a huge issue for us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where the first thing you look at is lifestyle thrift, right? When you come, you are totally comfortable. You have a nice job, right? You live in a nice home. You drive a car that takes you to work and back and takes you to groceries and everything. And that's all a car is supposed to do, take you to do those things, right? And then you get a raise, right? And you start looking around and like, hey, what can I do with this raise, right? Oh, so and so is driving a bigger car, so let me go get a bigger car, right? All of a sudden, you're living in a big, you buy a big house that you never sleep in, because you need to work 24 hours a day in order to pay the mortgage for that house.
Right.
You have 2 cars parked in front of your home, and you need to pay for that. But that is because we try to keep up with the Joneses, and that is a source of stress that we bring into our lives.
Mhm.
The other thing is the presence of social media in our everyday interaction, right? And I'm not one of those who will say social media is no good, because without social media, you and I will not be having this conversation here, and we'll not be talking to all people who are listening to us. So social media has its positive aspects too. On the other hand, what does social media show us? Everybody has an avatar on social media. Like I myself have an avatar on social media. That's not Emile. That's Emile representative of Facebook. The Emile that I want Facebook people to see.
Right.
That's not me, right? Everybody has this representative that they, photoshopped and slapped on social media.
Right.
And people spend their time trying to meet up to those standards. That's not real life. This is real life here, waking up in the morning, going to work, taking care of your children, making sure that there's food on your table. Those basic needs. Once we've met those basic needs, then we start looking for freedom. We start looking for things that will give us opportunities to experience life more than we've ever experienced. Take a vacation, go to the park, go visit your downtown. Those are the things that we want to do with the free time we have, instead of, looking for the next job or looking for the next big house and then putting more stressors on ourselves and trying to compete with Mr. Jones out there. Guess what? The Joneses are broke. Don't chase the Joneses.
The Joneses are broke. I like that. So let me ask you, so for us, and we're speaking here in such in a blended manner. So let's keep it that way. One of the things that those of us who are quote unquote immigrants, one of the issues that cause us a lot of stress is worrying about family back home and all the obligations that we have. So, you're dealing on one front with all the stressors in this society that we live in. And albeit so many of them, you can deal with, there are some that are beyond. But that's the primary one, is that you don't even know. And you have that lived experience of having lived back home. You understand some of the things, but it's so stressful. So, you know those calls that you get. You get those calls at the time when you're still sleeping. But, and the calls, are coming in because something happened. You just don't know what has happened. Then you're going to have to shake your skin. You never shake skin. But yeah. So talk to us a little bit about how we should embrace that, because somebody told me something. I learned from somebody that it's a righteous burden, and if you see it as that, then it becomes less stressful. And you just have to sort of, accept that, this is a righteous burden that I'm going to carry for the rest of my life. The people at home are always going to call up to me. It doesn't matter what time of the night or the day. And you just have to find the ways in order to communicate to them when you can and when you cannot meet those needs. Talk to us a little bit about your experience with that.
These bushfallers from Germany, they've dealt with us, right? Right. That's what started this whole thing. Yeah. These German boys. In any case, on a serious note, there is no right answer for that, right? Because you have obligations back home. And those are obligations, as your friend said, it's a righteous burden. Because the conditions from which you came, the conditions that the people you left behind are living in, and you want to do everything you can to help. And that is not something that some people can have tried to run away from it. It catches up with them eventually. So you want to try to uplift the people back home. You want to try to do everything that you can. I am lucky. I'm super lucky that I come from a home of 8 children. So we put our heads together and we try to do the best that we can for each other and for our loved ones back home. On the other hand, And I have to say this while I know that my family is listening, my friends are listening, and everything. My phone doesn't go to my bedroom. My phone doesn't leave my living room ever, right? No matter what is happening back home, there is nothing you can do at 2 a.m. Zero. There's nothing you can do at 3 a.m. Nothing. Yeah. Therefore, no, why are you taking phone calls at 2 a.m. from anybody? I'm sorry. Like,
good point. Good point.
Okay. If I know that there is a situation happening back home that is a minute by minute kind of thing, then that is one thing. On a routine day, right? I'll wake up in the morning, I'll do my thing, I'll do me, I'll have my 1 hour, an hour and a half for myself, and then I'll turn on my phone. All my friends, all my family, all my brothers, all my sisters, they know that. My phone doesn't come on until after my meditation, until after I'm done with my morning routine. And then I turn on my phone and then I can say, oh, people, what you got for me? But at the end of the day, you also have to be very honest with your people back home. If you're working in a warehouse, you're working a warehouse job like we did at the beginning. I did roofing in Germany, right? I was up there, rope tied around my waist, and trying not to fall from the 5th story of a roof in Berlin. And we were there was the time that we were scratching wallpaper from homes that they were renovating. Yes. That's the work I did. I wasn't rich back then, but I was also honest with my people, right? When my friends from Berlin went home during the Christmas months with flashy cars, I did not. Like, I knew my responsibilities. I knew that I needed to get myself to a place where I could help others, right? And that was it. If people back home, they're saying, oh, this person is doing this other person is doing this other person is doing this for their family. I'll simply tell my dad, like, you said we should go to school. We were not the ones who decided that education is the path that we're going to pursue. You, our parents, wanted us to pursue school, bachelor's degrees, master's degree, until my dad went to his dying grave. My dad was like, when are you going to start a PhD? That is the path that they put us on, right? Right. So I simply told my dad, look, you're the one who wanted us to go to school. I'm going to school. On the other hand, so and so, he's not going to school. He's working. On the other hand, you see that house over there? He has built that house. He has sent his 3 cars home because the day that they arrest him selling drugs, he's going to spend 3 years in jail and then he will come back and stay in that house. but let's be realistic. This is where I am. This is what I got. This is what I can do. Right. But self-care is very important. Take care of yourself. Fill your cup, and then you can give.
Powerful. Powerful. Now, there's another added dimension since we're on the back home issue. We've had a conflict that's been raging in our homeland now for the last 5 years. And prior to the conflict breaking out into a full-fledged war and conflict, there has been other issues of marginalization, subjugation, discrimination. That are all things that have affected mental health, trauma that has been not dealt with properly, because we know how the healthcare systems are from where we come from, especially when it comes to mental health and all the things that are associated with. How do you think, or how have you been coping, given the difficulty, the really challenging, traumatic events that are taking place back home, involving, friends, family members, people, acquaintances that we know, and how, what sort of strategies would you suggest for those of us in the diaspora in trying to navigate this? Because it's really difficult on the one hand, and given the stresses in this society, sometimes you feel like I should just shut this one and deal with what I have in front of me. But, you know that's not going away. So how do you strike a balance? What strategies? Any tips?
This is a tough one. This is a really tough one because our that is where they say your umbilical cord is buried, right?
Right.
And when you see your home burning, you want to rush in and save as much as you can save in order for everything not to go up in flames. Before 2017, I have to say we were the ones in what was that year? 1994, 1995, who stayed home because the GC, our parents, and I have to be very proud of that, refused to mark the GC under certain conditions.
Right.
And I can say that aside from 1990 with the advent of multi-party democracy, that was a pivotal point in Anglophone emancipation in Cameroon, in the Cameroon context. Let me put it that way. So we felt this on our flesh, on our education, and in every way possible. And then fast forward to 2017 with everything that has happened since then. We have failed in many ways, and I have to be honest, in the sense that if anybody who has done any social development projects knows what they call wicked problems. Wicked problems are problems that you don't have easy solutions. They are multifaceted, and it takes a lot of people to come together in order to solve the problem.
Right.
So let's say global warming. Global warming is a wicked problem, right? There are very many aspects to global warming that nobody can just sit here and say, I have the solution. Let's take world hunger. There are so many aspects, things that tie into world hunger that nobody can sit here and say, I can solve the problem. The problem in Southern Cameroon is a wicked problem. And unfortunately, it was presented to the people of Southern Cameroon as if it's a problem that can be solved in one day. Oh, we want independence, and snap of the finger, we have independence. And that has been a huge failure on our part. So we need to start there. We need to redefine the problem of Southern Cameroon. We need to sit down and say, this is the problem, and we have no solutions. No matter what anybody out there says, we have no solutions. And then we can say, how have other people who have faced such problems dealt with them? Because you and I live in Canada. We have the problem of land ownership in Canada. We did not acknowledge where we are. I have to acknowledge that right now I'm sitting on the land of the Tsutsina Nation. That is where I am, right? 3 years ago, we celebrated 150 years of Canada. 150 years of what? Of settlers coming here and creating a nation where there was already a nation. What were we celebrating, right? So we have the problem of Quebec. Up until now, there is a local political party, Parti Québécois, that is still fighting for the independence of Quebec. So despite all the solutions that the Canadians, between the English-speaking Canadians and the French-speaking Canadians, they found for the issue of Quebec, we still have problems, right? So the problem has not completely been solved. Go to Belgium, it's the same thing, right? There are 3 different ethnic groups in Belgium, and they've not yet come together. Belgium was without a prime minister for almost 3 years because they have not resolved their issues. So nobody, when I say nobody should come and sit here and tell me oh, we'll fight for independence, I will get independence in Southern Cameroon, so our problems will go away. They will not. Therefore, we need to redefine the problem. We need to put our heads together and find a way forward. Simple. So I use analogies, right?
Yeah.
And we love football. We're a footballing nation, and for me, Jose Mourinho is like.
It's a god.
He's like,
he's a demigod to you.
Mourinho.
You this magisters and anyways. Let me not get into it.
But I'll tell you a few things about Mourinho. When Mourinho went to Inter, our people can relate to this, right? He made a beautiful team in Inter, but they are not won anything before he came in, right?
Right.
Because everybody was playing the way they thought they could play best, right? But Mourinho came in, he took the team, and he said, Eto, you are good at this, but I see you being better at this other thing. This other person, you are good at this, but I see you doing this other thing better, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, he built a team that won everything.
Right.
Right? Because as a leader, he saw everybody's strengths and made sure that everybody's strength came out. And that's how he won. And then he goes to Chelsea and he does the same thing. Right? But there is a particular episode that made him, broke him away from the rest of the team. There is a situation where they are down by 1 goal. The captain of his team has an injury and goes down and calls for help. And the doctor goes in to treat the captain of the team. But what does that mean? It means that the captain has to step out. They have to play with 10 players for a few minutes before the captain can go back in. He saw all of that, right? A good leader sees the future, sees what is coming, what is happening. But he did not communicate it to the team properly. And he lost favor with the team. So these are 2 episodes of leadership where one, he was so successful, the other one, he failed completely. Leaders have to be able to see the best in everybody, bring people together, and help them to solve a problem. But they also have to be able to communicate what they see in the future. They always have to start with why. Why are we doing this? That is something that has not happened in the Anglophone issue, right? People are home and we are sitting here making decisions for them, arming kids, right, who have no education and turning Southern Cameroons into the Niger Delta. It's unacceptable. Therefore, we need to rethink how we are looking at the Anglophone problem in Cameroon. I'll call it the Anglophone problem, or what the Ambazonians, what the Southern Cameroonians are looking for. Because people are sitting here and their loved ones are living in insecurity. And their loved ones are turning around and blaming those Southern Cameroonian leaders for creating a problem back home. One person will say it's victim blaming. The other person will say, you people should stop this. We were in peace before this whole thing started.
Right.
There are no simple answers. And that is what we should start with. There are no simple answers. We don't have solutions. But the only way we can get solutions to the problem is to listen to everybody, to bring everybody together, and to have their opinions. I'll end. Go ahead.
No. And I was just going to say, do you think, because we're talking about this crisis, and to all of our viewers, we're going to have a lot of time. In fact, on this platform, we have a series running that we started a week ago that is actually addressing this actual issue. It goes the paths towards peace and justice, a case for Amazonia. So we're going to have you on that series to talk more about this issue. We're talking in the context of mental health. So you're saying it needs to take all of us. We need to not just focus on, the injustices that have led to this problem and that continue to create this scenario that provides an avenue for the conflict to continue. But we need to start looking at strategies, whether from leadership level or even from the grassroots level, that brings people together to talk about the issue, express themselves on what they think without judgment, and then we find a solution, having acknowledged that the solution is not a simple one, it's not a one-dimensional one, and that it would take more than one person to find a lasting solution. And all of this is good for mental health, because right now, it seems as if the traumas of what we have suffered in the past that have not been properly dealt with is informing a lot of the miscalculations that are being made in trying to find a solution to the problem. So it's like a vicious circle. If we don't deal with the mental health issues associated with this, then it makes it difficult to get through, to communicate properly in the way that we want to communicate, so that we can all start to talk about how we resolve it, rather than who started this problem, who's responsible for what, who isn't doing what correctly, and all of those negative tones. Do I capture what you're talking about?
And 100%. So I'll end with another anecdote, right? So we know that in the past, or in the present, in the north of Cameroon, there's been several issues with with dysentery and what's the other disease that comes from water?
Typhoid.
Typhoid. All right. So the British Council, they look at this problem and they say we have a solution. So they went to the villages, they dug sanitized wells around the homes, and made sure that people had clean water. But every time they would dig a well, the people would come and throw sticks and stones into the wells. And these British people were perplexed. They were like, what is happening here? We gave you clean water so that we should stop this problem with cholera. It was cholera.
Cholera, okay.
And you people are throwing stones into the well. You're throwing sticks into the well and blocking the wells. So they went back to the villagers and they asked them, like, what is happening? Why are you people throwing stones, sticks into the wells? Why are you covering the wells? And when they met with the elders told them, like, when the children go to fetch water, that is the only time that the parents have by themselves. It is more important for us that these children leave the house and go fetch water, so that the parents can have an intimate moment with themselves while the children are away. So they had solved a problem and created another. They had not talked to the people. They had not asked the people how they could help. And that is where the problem lies with the Southern Cameroon problem. We've not talked to the people. Secondly, we have not created communities abroad. We have not created communities, Southern Cameroon, communities. We have not created communities abroad. Let's create communities abroad. Let's start sharing information among ourselves abroad. Instead of fighting who will be IG, who will be non-IG, let's start creating communities. Let's start supporting each other. The Senegalese communities abroad, right? They look at funding for projects. When there is funding for any project, they talk to each other and say, where would these funds make the most impact? Where does this project have the highest chance of being approved? When they find a community abroad that the money will make the most sense to go to that community, they sit together, they apply for the funds, and the funds go to that community. The funds have not gone to my village. The funds have not gone to your village. Guess where? The funds have gone to Southern Cameroon. When we start talking together, we start working together, and in the diaspora, we'll find that there are solutions to these problem of independence and the problem of sovereignty that we are not seeing now because we are so blinded by our focus on the struggle.
On the terminologies.
Yes.
Okay, that's very well put, and I'm glad that we took that little segment away to talk about the Southern Cameroon's issue and how that attaches to this. So let me bring us to some aligning issues with respect to mental health in the diaspora here. For us men, what can we say about our encouraging our fellow men to seek help, to be open to issues around mental health, and to see it as an empowering thing rather than a diminishing thing, like making inquiries about your health, your minds, your state of mind, and all these things, that it's empowering. How do we build around this?
So we grew up in a society where masculinity is a big deal, right? You have to be a strong man. Men don't cry.
Yes.
And so on and so forth. That is toxic masculinity. our relationship with each other, our relationship with our women, our relationship with our children is toxic. Let's be honest about it. And because we have those toxic relationships with the people around us, we also have toxic relationships with other men and with ourselves. And to make matters worse, we have a horrible relationship with alcohol. That is something that is plaguing our African community and our Cameroonian community and our Southern Cameroonian community here. Our relationship with alcohol. So let's start with the idea of toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. It is the idea that a man doesn't cry, a man doesn't have vulnerabilities. I went to Bishop Rogan, so I spent 5 years there. All boys, you don't cry. So you are either a bully, you are the bullied, or you are a clown. There is no in between. Like, nothing. If you're a clown, they save you sometimes. If you are smart, you get bullied. If you are not very smart, you become a bully. So, and we don't cry. We don't accept that we are vulnerable. We don't look at our failures as a way to learn and grow. Mm-hmm. So how do we deal with these issues? The first thing is that we need to accept vulnerability. Vulnerability, for me, is the biggest mark of a leader. Saying that I'm in a difficult situation right now and I don't have an answer is the very first step in accepting that you are human and that sometimes you fail. And building a better relationship with failure is very important. And then building your life, starting with the most difficult thing that has happened to you. And that is a question that I ask at every interview. So I'm giving away one interview question for anybody with
your potential candidates. Pay attention.
Like, what is the most difficult thing that has ever happened to you? And how did you learn from that? How did you grow from there? And what do you think, if that situation occurred today, how are you going to deal with it? Our masculinity, they say, only strong men wear pink. And I have like 10 pink shirts. Like, somebody had to beg me, like, Emile, stop buying pink shirt.
Well, since the secrets are coming out, I have quite a few myself. And it does look good, I think I look good in pink, so I'm not going to give up a chance to look good because of a certain color.
Yeah. So our relationship with difficulty, men's relationship with difficulty, because you face a situation For those who are married, you come home, you don't talk about it with your wife. You come, you grab a bottle of beer, and you start commanding Usama chop day, and so on and so forth. Those are ways that we use to mask our vulnerability. When if we instead embrace our vulnerability, that is where courage starts. Courage always starts with vulnerability. So courage is not the courageous person is not the person who goes and fights a lion. That is stupidity. The courageous person is the person who is willing to accept that I am in a difficult situation. I don't know what to do here. I'll try anyways, and maybe I'll fail, and I'll accept that as a failure, and I'll learn from it. That is courage. The other thing is leaning on the people around you. You are the average of the 5 people closest to you. So try to get the best people around you possible. It doesn't mean that you have to have smart friends or you have to have people who have achieved a certain level in their life. No, you just have to have the people whose values match yours. And if you don't have 5 people around you whose values match yours, look for somebody out there and read their autobiography. I don't know Ray Dalio, right? He is he runs the biggest hedge fund in the world. He's one of the richest people. Before presidents make decisions in America, they call him and say, is this the right economic decision to make? But he was this smart in the 70s. In the 80s, he gave the president of the United States some advice that totally, like he was on TV, talking, and the world went the opposite way and his reputation was in tatters. Guess what? That was one of the most difficult situations in his life, and he picked himself up and built himself back up brick by brick. And he is now one of the most influential people in the world. So I have his book here. Whenever I'm in a difficult situation and I talk with the people around me, I go grab that book and I say, what would Ray Dalio do in this situation? And I look for the chapter where he talks about situations like that. And I learn from that. So who are those people in the world that you look up to? There is Elon Musk, there is Jeff Bezos, there are so many examples out there in the world that we can just pick up a book, read about them, and say, what were these guys' principles? So I go to work. My principle is I want to do meaningful work and make meaningful relationships. Is that original? No, I stole it from somebody. And I go and I look at that person. How did this person live their life? And I try to live that. The third thing for us is our relationship with alcohol.
That's a big one now.
That's a big one. Like, if you come to my home, my bar, my bar is full. And
yeah,
when you come to town, I take the weekend off, and we go downtown and we have fun.
Yes.
But alcohol cannot replace conversation.
Absolutely.
Alcohol cannot replace anything else. We need to make room to have those conversations with our loved ones. We need to make room to spend time with our children. We need to make room, to take our children out for games, for all those other things. If you go to the US or other parents here, oh, my child has this evening, my child has this evening, and I have to go to this. Those are important. They are important, right?
Yes.
So alcohol cannot replace those things. And then we have to give ourselves time, a time limit when we're dealing with the problem. If you have an issue that is nagging, and you have a friend who keeps talking about an issue, oh, my weight, I need to lose weight, yet whenever the refrigerator is behind you, the light is always on because that person is always, you have to be able to eliminate toxicity from your life. Absolutely. And the most important thing about eliminating toxicity is that you give a timeline for a problem. If you're trying to help a friend with a problem, and that friend keeps talking about that problem. That friend keeps talking about that problem. At some point, you have to be honest with that friend and say, dude, we've been talking about this problem for 6 months. I'm giving you 1 month. After 1 month, this problem is gone. From my radar, you can go talk with somebody else about this problem. It's no longer a problem that I'm willing to help you with because I've tried to help you for this long, right? Men need to be vulnerable. Men need to accept that they are not rocks. They can fail. They just need to find a way to lift themselves back up.
Powerful. So recognizing boundaries, putting in place boundaries, setting timelines, and being vulnerable and not being ashamed of it, embracing it as a path towards strength. Those are all coping mechanisms that we can use. And something very important that you mentioned is relationship with our loved ones, children, especially. That's another part that I was going to talk about is mental health. I know you're a father. I'm a father myself. And one of the things we're going to be talking about on this platform also, and I'm sure you're going to get an invite on many occasions to come into that, is fatherhood. So we have that in plans. But as men, as fathers, living in this society, we have to do more to build those relationships with our children, most especially because we're no longer in that hierarchical sort of society that we grew up in, where children are automatically obliged to respond in a certain way to parents. In this society, it's a little bit more challenging. You need to give a little bit more to get that response. And sometimes it affects the mental health, and you think, you're trying to square these two experiences and it makes no sense. And a lot of men, especially, from our cultures, become angry, or even resentful of the fact that, the children are behaving in a certain way. And so all of these things are things that you're saying, just being vulnerable in saying, in accepting and saying, you know what, I recognize this. There's really nothing, I have no solution, but I'm willing to try, can begin to open up those avenues where we can engage better. So that is very powerful. Let me ask you this question. With respect to relationships, what would you say in terms of, because that's another area of stress, society here and the structure of how relationships exist is quite different from, most of our lived experiences growing up. So, and that is a source of stress and anxiety, to people for various reasons. What sort of tips do you have in dealing with the mental health issues associated with relationships, the cultural differences that might lead to those mental health issues?
Yeah, so in terms of relationships, you have to start somewhere, and everybody has to bring something into a relationship. But I think that the first thing that most people bring into a relationship is a relationship with something else, right? So for most people, for most of us, it is a relationship with God, right? That is what a lot of people bring into a relationship first and foremost, right? For those people who don't believe in the existence of God or in a God, right? But they also have something to believe in. They may believe in science, they may believe in the universe, in the connectedness between all living beings.
Mm-hmm.
That is the first thing that you bring into a relationship. And that has to be made clear from the beginning. Hey, I go to church every Sunday. This is my thing. Or I go to church every 2 days, or I go to church every evening. That is the first thing that you bring into a relationship. And there has to be a conversation about that from the very beginning. The other thing is, when two people meet each other, they had a life before that. So you have to be very clear about that too, that these are my friends. This is what I do on Thursday evenings with my friends. And I would like to keep doing these things on Thursday evenings with my friends, right? So you have to have that time to yourself. You have to have your thing that is yours. So one, there is your thing that is yours. There is the thing that is your thing together, the two of you, right? And then there is your thing, that is your thing with your friends, with your boys, with your girls, right? You bring all of that together and you have a conversation about it, straight up. So it is having conversations about, one, your relationship with God, and that is very important. Your relationship with the universe, or whatever you choose to call it. Two, what is your life before you get into this relationship? What is important to you? What are those things that are important to you? And then the third thing you need to have a conversation about is the no-go zones. Like, this is a deal breaker for me. This happens, I'm done, I'm out, right? So that your partner knows that these are the things that this person likes or doesn't like, but these are the things that are no-go zones. So that when somebody goes into that zone, they know what the consequences are. But you have conversations about those things. You have conversations about those things. And then managing time. You have to make time for each other. You have to make time to be by yourselves. If you have children, you have to make time for a date night, and so on and so forth. There is a hand
Yes,
off. So
I want to give the chance to move to come on and ask his question. You can turn your camera on if you want to be on camera, or if you just want to ask your question without coming on camera, that's also fine. So go ahead. I'm glad that you raised your hand.
Thank you, Emile, for those wonderful insights. Sorry, my baby's all over the place.
That's okay. That's okay.
I just wanted to add that I hear Emile identifying the need for us to set boundaries and be clear with our values. I wanted to ask Emile, how do you tell people to communicate these values and boundaries? Because I think that sometimes it's not so much about having the values and the boundaries, it's how we communicate it to the other person so that it doesn't come across as accusations or blaming or control, right? So what are some communication skills that people need to be able to communicate these boundaries?
Very powerful. Thank you so much.
Awesome question. So again, that is a beautiful question. That is a very beautiful question. And it is not just communicating, it is how you communicate. And the first thing is if you don't get a chance to talk about these boundaries at the beginning of a relationship or at the beginning of any relationship, then if something happens, you don't blame. You don't say, oh, you did this, so I'm angry with you. You talk about your feelings. This is how I feel, right? So I'll say, for example, your significant other always walks on the carpet with your shoes on. You want to talk about it. You don't just jump in and say, look, stop dirtying the carpet with your shoes, right? You want to say, hey dear, look, it took me a lot of time with the baby, with the work, with everything. It takes me a lot of time to come in and then come and vacuum the carpet. So when you walk on the carpet with your shoes, I feel like you don't respect the work that I'm doing, right? That is completely different from go move your shoe. Or from why you can't get to the carpet.
Why did wear that shoe? Move that shoe.
But now you've put it in such a way that you start with your feelings. You start with how certain things make you feel, right? Or for example, I don't know. Let's talk about values, right? One of mine is that I need at least half an hour a day to read something new, to study something new, right? And you may have two TV sets in the house, and your significant other wants to watch the game. And then you're sitting in a quiet place reading, and your significant other comes and turns on the TV. And you say, you just say, hey, love, you know that I try to read every half an hour every day. And I try to make sure that I'm in this room so that you have the other room to watch your TV, right? So it makes me feel like you don't respect the fact my desire to learn something every day when you come and turn on the TV in the room where I'm watching, where I'm reading. I know that you want to spend some time with me, but please, love, can you please go watch TV in the other room? Simple, right? It is starting with how you feel. Always start with your feelings. Never blame the other person. Always start with your feelings. That is communicating those values in a situation where there is already a little bit of conflict. And in a relationship, you should never be afraid of conflict. Never be afraid of conflict. If there is an argument, argue it out right away. Talk about it. Fight it out, so that you deal with it and then you move on. Like that is very important.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much for that, Emile. That was very powerful because, as you said, resentment is one of the biggest killers of any functioning relationship, because once you start to resent, it's something that you can hide it in your heart and nobody will know. But one day it will pop out and that day will not be good.
So there is a saying that says all the deadly sins, right?
Yeah.
Are enjoyable except envy.
Yeah.
Envy is the only one that is inside of you and eats up, gluttony, man, food is good.
Right.
Like all the other deadly sins are enjoyable except envy.
Yes.
Who, you still have your hand up? Did you have a follow-up?
Oh yeah, I just wanted, this will be my last question.
Yes.
I just wanted to follow up because when you said that don't be afraid of conflict, it may come across to someone that has grown up in conflict and normalized conflict, like, oh, it's easier said than done. So how do you break it down for someone who conflict is all they know, right? Maybe they've grown up in a home where conflict has been normalized and now they avoid it as a protective mechanism, right? So how do you start engaging that kind of person to see conflict as healthy and not something to avoid? Because if we just tell everyone, don't be afraid of conflict, some people might be like, okay, how do I go about doing that? I'm not used to confronting people. I'm used to avoiding conflict. So yeah, what are some strategies that people can use to start changing the way they avoid conflict and seeing conflict as this is my opportunity to say my feelings and my thoughts?
Excellent.
This woman gets some good questions, man. Yes.
Gu is the fire lighter, she's bringing out the conversation.
Absolutely. So the first thing we need to look to when engaging with conflict is that we have to recognize that is the biggest, like in every relationship, every single day, conflict is the most present sentiment in every situation. Even with small good morning, when I walk down the hallway at work, I say good morning. The highest answer I get is, what is good about the morning, Emile? And right from there, conflict starts, right? So recognizing that conflict is always present is very important. And then breaking it down. What is this conflict about? Is it a conflict of personalities? Or is it a conflict, is it a transactional conflict? I want to do it this way and you want to do it this other way? Or is it a conflict about the past, about how we see the world, about religion, about politics, and all those things? So the most important thing is I recognize, one, conflict is always present. Two, I need to break it down in my head. What kind of conflict is this? if I'm doing this and my loved one is doing this other thing, is it just that this is just a transactional conflict where we have two different ways of doing things? Or is it a personality conflict where we are so different in our way of seeing the world that every time we need to do every single thing, we need to talk about it? When, you know, our personalities, our way of seeing the world, everything is so different. So we need to break it down. And then the third thing is that don't expect anybody in the world to just know that this is what you're thinking, ever. Even if it's somebody you've lived with for 20 years. If you have something to say it. If you think that they should be doing something differently, let them know. But always start with why. Because I would like for us to try things this other way. So that you are never assuming that the other person knows what you're thinking. You are never assuming that the other person knows what you are dealing with. And for those who have had conflict all their lives, it is difficult to all of a sudden become something else, right? And it takes practice. It takes trying. It takes, you know, rewarding and trying different approaches in order for you to get comfortable with using conflict as a springboard for communication. It is not a one-day thing. It is something you try, you fail, and you try again. But don't let a good conflict go in vain. Always utilize conflict in order to have communication. So it is learning one day at a time, one foot in front of the other.
Perfect. And now that we've talked about, and thank you, Ngu, for that powerful question. Now that we've talked about conflict, we are almost at the top of the hour here. We're going to be wrapping up soon. But I want to thank everybody who's watching us, our viewers, and to especially those who are in the studio here with myself and Emile. We have Ngu, we have George, we have Maureen, we have Besem, we have Ella, Isabel, we have Reverend Rex, and we have two folks that I can't identify the names because they're iPhone and owner. So thank you all so much, incredibly, for joining and for watching and for being so cordial and keeping your mics off and quiet so that the show can flow smoothly. I want to extend an invitation to you all to continue to come on to this show. We do it every Sunday. We have a range of issues. Maybe one of you is an expert or can speak or has experience on a certain topic. Reach out to me. We'll have you on. We'll talk about it and we'll all engage. This platform is all about conversations that can help us live a meaningful life and that can reduce conflict. Now, speaking about conflict, I'm going to explain and announce to all of our viewers that there is a very important initiative. Emile right here is a part of it. Myself and Emile are co-founders of an organization called Rescue Team International. And that organization has partnered with another organization, and we've created this project called Peace Through Film. And essentially, this project is about bringing people from all sides of the conflicts that are going on to watch a movie about conflict and conflict resolution and peace and justice. And after that movie, to have a facilitated session where we talk about lessons learned and how we can all take those lessons from these movies and employ them as ambassadors of justice and peace in the various communities and societies where we live, and especially in addressing the conflicts that we face. Particularly, there is a conflict that is affecting most of us here who are of Southern Cameroon descent, and that is the war going on in our land. So, thank you all. That project is being launched. If you look on Facebook, it's called Peace Through Film. Just search that on Facebook, follow the page, engage with us there. You can also go on our website, peacethroughfilm.com or peacethroughfilm.ca, and you can register. This project is launching as of February 1st. The website and the Facebook page are all live right now, but the first showing of these movies will be on February 13th. The next showing will be on February 20th and then on February 27th. And so just go to the website to get more information or on Facebook. Now, Emile, as we wrap up, I want you to offer our viewers with some concluding message on the issue of mental health. And knowing that we are going to continue to have this conversation, we're going to talk extensively about mental health in men and other things. And we're going to explore different scenarios as we go down the line. Today was more general, but offer some concluding words to our viewers.
So for those of us who are lucky to live in Canada, this month, Bell has the initiative of Let's Talk About It. The most important thing is to talk about it. Talk about it. Whenever you feel like you're in a situation that causes you stress, talk about it. There is no need hiding it. There's no need trying to solve a problem by yourself. So find somebody, talk about it, and make sure that somebody knows. If somebody knows, then help is available. Take care of yourself. So we didn't get to talk about how our physical health affects our mental health. But if there is anything I can advise those who live in the diaspora, who live out here, is cut out the sugar, cut out the bread. It helps because your brain is directly linked with your gut. Stop eating sugar, stop eating baked goods, try to reduce the hydrogenated oil in your diet. That gives you mental clarity. Third, find time for yourself. Find time for yourself. Go out for a walk. Wake up early in the morning so that you have half an hour. For those of you with children, if you have to wake up a little earlier and go to bed a little earlier so that you have 1 hour of your time without your children, please find time for yourself. Finally, for men out there who think they need to be strong and invincible, please develop a better relationship with failure. Failure is part of everyday life. Failure is here to help us to grow. It is here to teach us. It is here to make us better people. So don't be afraid of failure. Set boundaries, get rid of toxic people in your life. You don't need them, they don't help you. Surround yourself with people who make you feel good about who you are. Please don't compete with the Joneses because the Joneses are broke. So that is the final thing. But there is one last thing. February is here. It's Black History Month, and please, anywhere you walk, anywhere, the people you relate with, if they want to talk to you about Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or those people, tell them to shut the hell up. Please tell them to talk about Castillo. Let them talk about things that are happening today, things that are happening now to us as Black people in this world. Yes. Let's talk about those things. Martin Luther King, he has a boulevard named to him in every city. Let's talk about the drug dealers on those streets, on those Martin Luther King boulevards in the US. Let's talk about the relationships among ourselves. Let's build communities. Let's build African communities here. So for Black History Month, please try to connect with another Black man and talk about our lives now, not the past. I know it says Black history. We are making our own history now. Let's start making that history for our children.
Wow, very powerful. I couldn't have asked for a better way to conclude our conversation this evening. Thank you so much, Emile, for joining us. We will be having you here to have more conversations like this. Thanks to all of our viewers. I'll just check. I think somebody left. Okay. Yes. So, Ms. Ngu, please, I will reach out to you and we will talk. And I really, really appreciate your questions and also appreciate your area of expertise. We will definitely talk. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Follow us on Filtered with Chebs McFarlane on Facebook is the link. If you want to get notified regularly when we have our show on, encourage others to come on board. We're always looking for ideas and topics to explore on these shows. So if you have some ideas of things you'd like to have a conversation on, bring it on. That's why it's called Unfiltered. We don't have any limit to what we can talk about and explore in conversation for our benefit. Thank you all very much, and I wish you a great, blessed Sunday evening and a great week ahead.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to the conclusion of our show today. We've had a very great conversation, and look out on our YouTube channel, Chebs McFarlane, to catch a recording of this conversation. And shortly after this broadcast, a recording should be available on Facebook page. And we will be back next week, continuing our series on Amazonia, and also having conversations on other related issues like we did today. Thank you, Emile, for reminding us about Black History Month and giving us some tips on how to deal with that. Have a great night. Signing off.
I'm your host here, Chebs McFarlane. Welcome to Unfiltered. I'm your host here, Chebs McFarlane. Welcome to Unfiltered.